it's Yen, and how's your plan to visit Jeju coming along? As promised in the last episode, today I'll be talking about public transportation on the island, specifically the bus system. I think this is going to be very useful for you if you're not going to drive in Jeju. So first of all, what do you need? Well, in Korea, most of us use the T-Money card to take a bus. How do you purchase and recharge this card? Cards can be bought at most convenience stores, and the price of the card is anywhere from 3,000 won to 5,000 won. Sometimes they can come out with some limited edition with cute pictures on it, really nice designs on the cards. And you can purchase it at the airport convenience store as well. Now, as you acquire the card, you can add however much you like to spend in it. So I would suggest that you put in somewhere between 10,000 won to 20,000 won for a start. Before you go back to your home country, you can get the remaining balance back in the 1,000 won units at any of the convenience stores. So you don't have to worry about putting in too much. Of course, if you put in too little, go back to the convenience store and charge it again. Now, let me tell you a little bit about bus information. There are 5 types of buses on Jeju Island. Honestly, I haven't tried all the buses. There's the express bus, which is the red in color, and then the blue ones are the inter-district buses. That's the one that I always use. Then we have the green one, which is the intra-district bus, which means it goes around that particular area. And then, of course, you have the circular buses, which are orange, and then the airport bus, which is the brown, dark brown in color. In Korea, fares are discounted if you transfer to another bus. The number of transfer discount you can get is 2 times when you transfer. You must remember to tag when getting off a bus, and then tag again when you board the next bus within 40 minutes for you to receive the discount. Now, discounts do not apply to all the buses on the same route. Also, there are some routes that the discounts are not applicable. So if you transfer from a bus with a lower base fare to a bus with a higher base fare, say the express bus, then you will only have to pay the difference when you transfer the bus. Next, let's talk about the city tour bus. Honestly, in this many years of living on Jeju, I've never taken the Jeju city bus, but I've always seen it around, and it's a very pretty bus with it's a double-decker bus, so it has open deck above. So it takes you around a tour downtown Jeju City, and there are basically 2 routes. The coastal course that goes around the coast, beautiful scenery, and of course there is the downtown course around the city. There is also a transfer point, if I'm not wrong, in the middle where you can transfer buses. So it operates 6 times a day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. but you must take the last bus at 3:30 p.m. and each ride takes about 1.5 hours or so. These buses are not in operation on Mondays. In case of some tourist attractions, you can get discounts through partnerships with the Jeju Tourist City Bus. So check out this website and plan ahead so that you can get some great discounts up to 50%. Next one I want to talk about is some apps that you can use while in Korea. It is difficult to use Google Maps. It's not accurate, so don't follow the Google Maps, especially on Jeju Island. In fact, there are many cases where stop names or places that you want to go are not translated into English, so it can be quite difficult. Most people use the Kakao Map or Naver Map. Download the Kakao Map or the Naver Map. I will now show you in detail how to use this app. So first of all, the Kakao Map. You need to change your language into English. And how do you do that? First, from the home, go to settings, and then you find app settings, language settings, service settings, and then the language. So you can change Korean to English. Next, traveling method. So you need to enter departure point and then, of course, destination address. Once you have set your language settings, you can search for the desired location and designate it as the destination. If you turn on your current location on your phone, then your departure point will automatically set itself up. Number 2, how to turn on bus real-time location. Now, Kakao Map has this great function that allows you to check the real-time location of buses, which is very useful because most of the buses in Jeju, they don't really come that frequently. So it's really good if you can have this function on. So you go to Kakao Map, select the high precision bus icon to see the location of the bus. And then you will be able to see the little buses moving in real time. If you click on the bus, then you'll be able to see the route. Okay, so that's Kakao Map. The second map that you can use is Naver Map, and this is how to change the language settings in Naver Map. First, go to your profile setting, which is on the left upper side of your phone, where you see like 2 lines there. Click on that, and then select app setting, and then you can change to your desired language. Then search for transportation method. This is how to search for whether you're going to walk, or whether you're going to take a bus, or whether you're going to drive. Likewise, on Naver Maps, if you set the desired destination and search, various travel routes and methods will appear, and then you can choose from these options. Now, both of these apps have their pros and cons, but in the case of Jeju Island, I would say the bus timings are quite long. So I think KOR Maps real-time bus location function is really useful. Another thing is both apps, sometimes if you search for the destination that you want to go to in English, sometimes it does not work, no matter how you try to spell it. So the next advice that I can give to you is that to save the address in Korean first in your phone, and then you copy and paste it to the destination mode. Then that's a higher chance that you go to the destination that you want to go to. Alright, so next let's go to the airport bus stop location. You would need to search your bus number at the airport kiosk and then use the maps to see what time it's going off. And I would really recommend that you check with the information desk at the airport first of all, just to make sure that the number of the bus is correct. All the bus stops are located across the gates, but the tricky part is that there are some buses at this airport stop with the same numbers. They go to opposite directions. So make sure you check the number and the direction of the bus before you board. Even after 10 years living in Jeju, I actually got lost while taking the bus. And the story goes, I assumed upon returning to my first destination, I just needed to take the bus across the road, with the same bus number. And apparently, not all Jeju buses work that way. And even though I took the same number, I ended up in the middle of nowhere at night near some unknown cemetery. I had to call my friend for help. Of course, this is my later adventure. The best way is to show the bus driver your destination in Korean. You can save the name first and show it to the bus driver. So if you say okay, then you can board the bus. Anything besides the okay, you can get off the bus and go to the information desk. So I think we covered more or less the bus system of Jeju. And if there are any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And we'll see you again next time. Bye.